The White House argues that Turkey would have invaded Syria no matter what the U.S. did. Now, this comes amid growing bipartisan backlash on Capitol Hill to a crisis that many think President Trump helped to create. Meantime, Turkey's President Erdogan wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal last night defending his move to invade northern Syria. Dealing with the influx of refugees in the aftermath of Syria's civil war is one of the ways he justified the incursion. Erdogan also says that his country has shouldered the burden for years, and he recently called on world leaders to join Turkey or take in refugees themselves. Ben Tracy is at the White House with more on this. Ben, what does the Trump administration plan to do next?
Well, the president is going to send a senior delegation to Turkey, including Vice President Mike Pence, to try to broker some sort of peace. The U.S. is also hitting Turkey with sanctions, but a source tells CBS News that even the administration acknowledges that those sanctions are unlikely to change Turkey's mind.
The president of the United States called on the president of Turkey to stop the invasion.
Vice President Mike Pence attempted damage control as criticism mounts of President Trump's abrupt decision to withdraw troops from Syria, allowing for Turkey's invasion.
We want an immediate ceasefire, and we want to begin negotiations between Turkey and Syrian defense forces.
The administration's initial statement announcing the withdrawal of troops set no boundaries for Turkey's military operation. But after bipartisan backlash, President Trump vowed to destroy Turkey's economy if it went through with this kind of invasion.
If there wasn't, there should have been a very clear sanctions threat provided during that conversation to prevent exactly what Erdogan ended up doing.
Now the White House is hitting Turkey's top government officials and ministries with sanctions, doubling steel tariffs to 50% and canceling negotiations over a $100 billion trade deal.
These sanctions are very, very strong.
While the U.S. will keep some troops in the region to prevent an ISIS resurgence, the president is broadly sticking by his initial decision to pull out and boasting of defeating 100% of the ISIS caliphate. As for the Kurdish fighters who were crucial in accomplishing that, Mr. Trump also said, "Let Syria and Assad protect the Kurds." Bashar al-Assad's Syrian government, a bitter enemy of the United States, is backed by Russia.
This alliance between the Kurds and Assad is not good for us.
Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell issued a strongly worded statement Monday saying he was gravely concerned by our nation's apparent response thus far, and that withdrawal would create a broader power vacuum in Syria that will be exploited by Iran and Russia.
So, Ben, some of the president's closest allies in Congress are continuing to push back on the troop withdrawal. And it almost seems like the administration did not expect the criticism to last so long, and they have sort of been making it up as they go along. You know, first there was the announcement and the president sort of received criticism, then he justified it, and then he sort of minimized it, saying it was only around 50 troops. And then he now introduced this idea of sanctions, and now the vice president is heading to Turkey. Is it that perhaps the administration was not prepared for this level of backlash?
They may not have been prepared for it, but they certainly should have seen it coming, and mainly because we've been down this road before. It was just about a year ago that President Trump announced a withdrawal of troops, a drawdown of troops from Syria. There was fierce backlash, including from his own defense secretary, who then resigned. So the president knew that this was something that would irk both Democrats and Republicans. But let's also keep in mind how this happened. This was President Erdogan of Turkey calling President Trump on a Sunday when there are not the normal slew of advisors here at the White House, the NSC staff. And in the course of this phone call, from what we can tell, President Erdogan said, "I'm going to do this invasion." And President Trump said, okay, kind of called his bluff and said, if you're going to go through with this, we're going to get out of the way, but you're stuck with the consequences of it. President Erdogan did it. So this doesn't seem to be the result of a large planning process here in the White House, which might have diffused some of this backlash if people on Capitol Hill saw that there was some sort of plan here.
Right. So now we hear that the vice president is expected to head to Turkey. The vice president just said that, President Trump spoke to Erdogan and asked him to stop this. So what exactly do we expect the vice president to accomplish?
That's unclear. When the vice president came out yesterday and talked to reporters, he did not give any sort of timetable for when he'd be heading to Turkey or what his kind of brief is in terms of brokering some sort of peace between the Turks and the Kurds. That's a tough order. These are two groups of people who have been fighting each other for years. So the thought that the vice president's going to parachute into Istanbul and somehow solve this whole thing in a couple of days seems unlikely. But I think President Trump does feel like they have to do something here. They have to try to convince President Erdogan to change course. We should also note that the timing of all of this is very interesting. President Erdogan is scheduled to visit the White House next month, and we asked officials here yesterday if that visit is still on. They were non-committal, but they have so far not canceled it.
Oh, that is really interesting, Ben. Thank you very much.